Okay, so this meeting is being live streamed, as you know, and please don't hesitate to actually ask your questions in the chat room. There will be some time at the at the end of each session for. Oh, I'm seeing myself. Okay, so this meeting is being live streamed. So there will be some time at the end of each sort of section for you to ask some questions. And yeah, I suggest we get going. So the question that we are going to answer today is relating to the reform and UK music law on requested and suggested reform on UK music law relating to how to make the music streaming market economically viable for all stakeholders, and how these plans for the UK legal framework relation to music streaming compares to what is now in place in most member states of the European Union, and how you as a music creator, as a content creator, in particular music creator, you can position yourself to get the best deal. So the first section I wanted to talk about is what is the current state of play in relation to these music contracts in the era of the digital single market. Well, I think that quite a lot of music deals, music recording deals, and music publishing deals are especially those, of course, with legacy artists, are still very, very much ruled by the ancient era, where CDs were the main distribution channel of music, and basically where the sale of physical products was king. Sadly, with Napster in the early noughties, this completely changed, and Napster, the pirate peer-to-peer music system, just disrupted the whole music economy. And then there was the time where downloads were in competition with music streaming, and then eventually we discovered a few years ago that music streaming won the game for now. And so the likes of Spotify, Deezer, and Apple Music, Amazon Music are now the king of distribution in the music era. So all these, as I was saying, old recording and publishing contracts in the music industry, in particular for legacy artists, or even for new artists who sadly sign with labels or publishers who still have not updated their templates for their recording deals. Well, they end up with a sore deal, like a difficult situation to deal with in terms of monetizing those music streams. And so some figures were released by various bodies recently in 2021, such as the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry, IFPI, which explain that the music engagement mix now only relies for 9% on physical products such as CDs, vinyls, DVDs, downloads, while basically the streaming services represent at the very least 50% between the subscription audio streaming, the ad-supported audio streaming, and also the video streaming such as Dailymotion, YouTube, etc. So streaming definitely has won for now the fight. And the problem that CSAC, the International Confederation of Societies of Authors and Composers, has underlined in its 2021 Global Collections report is that while streaming is fast heading towards being the most important source of creators' earnings in the future, streaming revenues are not distributed in a way which is fair towards the music creators, so the music composers and the music performers. So what's the solution here? Especially since, as I explained, a lot of music labels and music publishers are still relying on old templates, old contracts, old templates of contracts where it's not clear how music streams are going to be remunerated. So on the back of all that, there's been this push in the 28 now that the UK has gone out of the EU 27 member states of the European Union since 2016 to set up a single digital market. And this single digital market is here to help content creators, but also media and distribution companies find the best way to broadcast their content in online, and while at the same time getting paid for it. So the Digital Single Market Directive, which was which entered into force in 2019, contains a lot of provisions to improve the fluidity, efficiency, and also protection of property rights, intellectual property rights, in its content. But today we are only going to focus on the digital single market directive provisions, which are basically applicable to content creators and music creators, such as music composers and music performers. And so the current state of play in relation to those music contracts in the era of the digital single market is that in the EU, the 27 member states have now transposed, or in the process of transposing this DCM, this Digital Single Market Directive. The deadline was at the end of June 2021, but I understand that quite a lot of member states did not manage to transpose the directive on time. Anyway, it's underway, and they are basically transposing it now. And so coming back to the state of play, what is happening is that in the UK, content creators are like waking up like, oh my God, the UK is not going to transpose the directive for Digital Single Market Directive, obviously, because the UK has done a Brexit. So what's going to happen to us? How can we stay on level playing field with these music creators who are based in the European Union? So in France, in Germany, in Netherlands, it's Italy, Spain, and how can we make sure that we are basically treated fairly compared to them? And that is the current state of play. And this is why, therefore, the UK Parliament, and in particular, the section of the UK Parliament, which is called the Standing Committee on the Copyright and Related Rights of Intellectual Property. Apologies, no, I'm talking, getting confused here. I meant the House of Commons Digital, Cultural, Media and Sports Committee of the UK Parliament has come up with a string of requested changes, recommendations, and amendments to, in particular, the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988, the CDPA. So this is the main law relating to protection of copyright in the UK, the CDPA. Copyright Design and Patent Act 1988. And so that is the state of play. Okay, the state of play is that some MPs, members of parliament in the UK, have just waken up. They're just trying to basically, ring the bell and give a wake-up call to all the policymakers in the UK that soon, very soon, UK-based musicians and music creators, songwriters are going to be in a distressed situation, because not only can they not go easily touring because of COVID and because of the Brexit issues with obtaining visas to go and do some live touring in the 27 member states of the EU. So not only do they have these restrictions in relation to live touring, but also they are now going to be at a disadvantage, those UK musicians and music creators, compared to their peers who are based in the EU and who will be able to benefit from the level playing field created by the provisions of the Digital Single Market Directive, which is being transposed in national law in the 27 member states. That is the state of play. So this is the first point I wanted to make in relation to this live webinar today. Do any one of you have a question, some comments that you would like to make at this point? You can use the chat section if you wish, or you can also unmute yourself and ask a question if you wish. Enrique is also joining us. Hello, Enrique. So if you have some questions or points, I'm also checking our live stream on YouTube to see if everyone has any questions. Okay, so on YouTube, Emily is asking, can UK music creators sign a deal in Europe, in the European Union? Good question, Emily. So, well, in any case, that will require quite a lot of swagger, okay? Because obviously, if you are signing with a major like Universal, Warner, or Sony, they all have some subsidiaries in various European countries. So, say you are a French music creator, it's very likely that Warner Music France will want to sign you for the recording deal, and Warner Chappell France will want to sign you for the publishing, and the same goes for Sony in Germany, Universal in Germany, etc. So basically, to answer your question, Emily, how to sign a deal in Europe if you are based in the UK? Well, this is where you need to connect and mingle with fellow artists who are based in the European Union, with whom you can do some collaborations, and therefore attempt through that way, for this sort of collaboration with this other fellow artists based in the European Union, to actually attempt to get a recording deal with, for example, his or her label in France. Say, I remember there was this English artist a few years ago. So that was before the transposition of the Digital Single Market Directive, who basically got signed by a major in France, actually, while he was actually singing in English. So that was quite funny. But it was based in Paris. It was based in France, probably still is, by the way. And he managed to sign in France with a major in France, and also to do all his marketing and development of his brand as an artist there. I think his name was Charlie's, anyway, it will come back to me. But that was an interesting case of where this guy actually positioned himself to act as an English-speaking songwriter and performer, to actually launch his career from France. And so therefore, in this instance, if you are signed by a EU label, an EU-based label, then you can take advantage of all the advantages of the protections which are inside the directive, the Digital Single Market Directive, that I'm going to talk about in the second section. Another also way you can do this is, for example, if you decide to release some music which is going to be liked in EU-based countries. So, for example, if you are Latino or Latina, and therefore you speak Spanish as well as English, it is a good idea to actually release a salsa song or like a Latinx song, because then it will be successful in Spain, and then that is attractive to Spanish record labels, and therefore you can do some business with, for example, so also Latino music is also quite successful in France. So that could really have some attraction. This kind of music, this genre, could have some attraction for some EU-based labels in Spain, or, as I was saying, perhaps even Italy or France. Okay, so there are a few questions in the chat on Zoom. So what are the disadvantages? I'm not quite sure what that means. So perhaps, Stephen, if you can expand on your question, that would be great. So Amal is asking, could you repeat the name of a copyright policy being discussed in the UK Parliament? Sure. Actually, I'm going to expand on this, Amal, and I think now is the right time for me to do so, actually. So sure. So yes. So what's happening is that in October 2020, the members of Parliament, MPs from the House of Commons Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee launched an investigation during which they heard from music creators, industry experts, and streaming services. They also held some roundtables with musicians to hear their views, and wrote to major UK record labels and tech companies for explanations. So what I'm doing now, Amal and the rest of you guys who are kindly following us on YouTube, is that I'm putting the link on the chat box of my latest article, which contains plenty of links to these various website pages from the UK Parliament, where you can actually see all the documentation about this investigation, which was launched by the House of Commons Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee. So they did an enormous amount of work, okay? Frankly, it was very thorough. I did read the 102 pages report entitled Economics of Music Streaming that they released in July 2021, this committee, and it is a thorough job. Really quite thorough and useful. Frankly, I found them very constructive. So you have all the links to this in my article, which I just submitted to you guys on Zoom, and I'm also going to submit it on YouTube as well. And so after this report was issued in July, then the government, the UK government, as well as the Competition Markets Authority, the CMA, the UK Competition and Market Authority, issued their response to this committee's report in September 2021. And also in September 2021, there was a bill which was presented by one of the UK MPs, one of the UK members of Parliament, to the UK Parliament. And this is the bill which is called a bill to make provision about the rights and remuneration of musicians, which is dated 24th November 2021. Again, you can find the link to this bill in my article. Okay, so as far as the timeline of this bill is concerned, it is now at its second reading stage in front of the House of Commons in the UK, right? And so let's now talk about the protective legal framework set up by the Digital Single Market Directive. which is protective of music creators, okay? Because chronologically, as I explained, first was the Digital Single Market Directive, and then came the UK response to that, to the DSM, to this directive, through the investigation and then the bill that I just mentioned. And yes, my pleasure, Amal. So yeah, thanks, Stephen, for clarifying your point about the disadvantages. So I'll come back to this in a second, okay, about the disadvantages and advantages versus, yeah, so I'll come back to that. So first, let's delve into what is this protective framework set up by this directive, which, as I said, was entered into force in 2019 with a view of being transposed by June 2021 by the 27 member states. Well, it's very interesting. I mean, seriously, the EU, the European Brussels-based policymakers have done some really, really serious work. And frankly, it is great for music creators. I don't think the labels and the publishers will really like those reforms, to be honest. I am actually pretty 300% sure they very much dislike them. But honestly, from a music creator and content creator perspective, this is really good news. Why? Well, firstly, because the Digital Single Market Directive introduces some transparency provisions. Its Article 19 provides that authors and performers shall receive on a regular basis, at least once a year, up-to-date, relevant and comprehensive information on the exploitation of their works and performances from the parties to whom they have licensed or transferred their rights or their successors and title, in particular in relation to the modes of exploitation or revenues generated and remuneration due. So now, by law, statutory law, which means that the contract, the recording and publishing contracts cannot override these provisions, which are mandatory. Now, these mandatory provisions force the music publishers and music labels to issue some statements at least once a year to their talent, to performers and to songwriters, lyricists. They need to, and hand out the information to them and be able to prove it. So they need to keep all the track record of everything, otherwise they could be in trouble. And that is a great way for music creators to actually see, okay, so my music has been sold that way, and the statement shows that I'm owed that much money, and actually I only received a much lower amount of money this year. So what's happening? Where is the money? Okay, so this transparency provision is also reinforced by another directive, which is the one relating to collective management of copyright, which is from 2014, and which also puts an obligation on collective management organizations, so CMOs, collective management organizations. So in France, it would be SACEM, ADAMI, etc., etc. In the UK, it would be PRS, PPL, and it would be GEMA in Germany, etc. So the CMOs also have an obligation to provide their rights holders reports of revenues that include the revenue attributed to the rights holder, the amount paid by the CMO to the right holder per category of rights managed, and per type of use. Okay, so therefore, this transparency obligation is very strong, because for a long time it had been put on the CMOs, the collecting societies, but now it is also mandatory for record labels and music publishers. So, ta-da, that's tough. And of course, there's no equivalent of that in the UK for now. Okay, because but that is this is one of the rights under the Digital Single Market Directive, which is being transposed in 27 member states of the EU, Yes, of the EU. And so what are some other additional rights that this DSM, this Digital Single Market Directive, has provided to music creators based in the EU? Well, quite a lot, really. And it's all set out in Chapter 3. And for example, there is a right to an appropriate and proportionate remuneration. So this is called the fair remuneration principle. And if you got your statement, okay, and your annual statement that your label or your publisher has to send you, you see this and you say, okay, so the publisher and has made 1 million out of my, my songs, and in particular my streams. How come I only get 100 euros? What's happening here? Okay, and so here it's very clear that your appropriate and proportionate right to fair remuneration has been breached, and you can say that to your publisher. Okay, you can say that to your label. What's happening with this? Where's my money? Okay, so this is why this right of transparency is so useful. So this is Article 18 of the Digital Single Market Directive, this right to fair remuneration. There's also in the Article 20 of the Digital Single Market Directive a contract adjustment mechanism. So if I'm doing the information obtained through the transparency obligations, authors and performers see that they have not received appropriate and fair remuneration, as I've just explained with my example just earlier, then you can actually, because they can see that their remuneration is disproportionately low compared to the relevant revenues derived from the single exploitation, then then can ask for a contract adjustment. They can say, guys, this is not working for me. My streams are not getting paid on them. So I want to have a fair remuneration here. Okay, so how about you give me 50% of what you make every time you get a stream? You get remuneration from a stream. I want my money. And so, yeah, you've got the contract adjustment mechanism where everybody's got to sit around the table, the counsel, the lawyer for the performer, the lawyer for the label, and we discuss and we say, how are we going to amend this contract so that my client's right to fair remuneration gets respected, and so you can do a really good negotiation. If it is not successful, if it is unsuccessful, this renegotiation with the publisher or the record label, then the creators have the option to bring a claim with a voluntary alternative dispute resolution body. So an ADR body, so it's not a court, it's an alternative dispute resolution body, which will be set up in the EU member state where this music creator is based. So it's awesome. This is like so new. This kind of if you are an artist and you've signed your publishing agreement like 20 years ago, and so a lot of water has gone under the bridge since, and now streaming is so massive, but your 20 years old contract with your publisher, nothing has been set out about streams, and therefore your publisher basically pays you as if this stream was a license income. Then you get almost nothing. But through these clauses, which are in the Digital Single Market Directive, now you have a right to force your publisher to sit at the table and renegotiate the contract. And that is big. This is a big, big right. So as I said, there's also this new alternative dispute resolution mechanism, which has been put in place. This is referred to in Article 21 of the Digital Single Market Directive. And it's great because then you can go to this voluntary body as a music creator, and you can say, I have a problem with my record label. I have a problem with my publisher. I tried to sit down with them and to renegotiate, to get a fair and equitable remuneration, but they would not let me do that with them, and therefore you as the ADR body, you need to support me in resolving this dispute, okay, which arises because they don't want to renegotiate. But you could also bring an ADR dispute to this body in France, in Germany, in Spain, etc. If the publisher or the label does not comply with its transparency obligations of providing you at least once a year with a statement. So this is really quite awesome. Of course, even if you are bringing a claim and a dispute in front of this alternative dispute resolution body, you can also still sue in court the publisher of the label. So I mean, come on, this is such a great change in terms of a balance of power here. You know, like the dynamics are completely different. So it really is a way to re-empower the music creator. And let's face it, you know, if nobody wants to go into the music business as a music creator, as a content creator, because they know they're not going to be paid a dime on their streams, which are more or less the only way to make money nowadays, because nobody can tour anyway, or go like do some live stuff anyway. You know, it's not the best and the brightest who are going to join the ranks of the songwriters and the performers of tomorrow. So in the supply chain of music, the music creators, be it the lyricists, the composers, or the performers, are extremely important. They need to be by the other stakeholders in the music industry. And this is really what this digital single market directives, I think, very successfully achieving here. Changing the power dynamics and shifting the balance of power. So there's also a revocation right. Article 22 of the digital single market directive says that if a copyright work which has been licensed exclusively is not being exploited by the licensee, so the record label or the publisher, then the content creator, music creator, can actually just terminate the agreement. Yeah, and I suppose also this revocation right could also be used, apologies, if the renegotiation in order to obtain fair and equitable remuneration fails. So yeah, so music creators now in the EU have this revocation right. So that's cool, and that's statutory. So it's a statutory right. It cannot be overruled and overridden by the content of any publishing agreement or label recording agreement. So that's pretty awesome. And indeed, as I was just mentioning, there's a specific ban on contractual overrides of these provisions. So this is okay. And sorry, just one point before we move on to what's happening in the UK. On the Digital Single Market Directive, there is another great clause which is very important for music creators, which is Article 17 of this Digital Single Market Directive, which basically provides that user-generated content platforms, so the likes of YouTube or Dailymotion, have to enter into licensing agreements with the rights holders regarding the use of protected content, so uploaded by someone other than the rights holders. So let me explain to you what that means in plain English, if I may. Well, if you have Jane Doe, who uploads on her YouTube channel, Jane Doe YouTube channel, the latest music track of let's take Michel Polnareff, who is a French artist. Okay, so she uploads the latest track of Michel Polnareff, who used to be a very big star in France in the 80s. And Jane Doe is just, you know, just like an individual. She's not a company, etc. So she doesn't clear the rights with Michel Polnareff, publisher and record label, when she uploads this track on YouTube. Well, then YouTube, as this user generated content platform, has the obligation now to actually reach out to the publisher and label of Michel Polnareff, this French songwriter performer, to actually obtain a license. So that means bye-bye safe harbor protection. There's no safe harbor protection now for user-generated content platforms anymore, like YouTube or Dailymotion. They have, by law, by the DSM directive, they have to obtain those licenses. And if it is not possible to enter into a licensing agreement with the rights holder, the platforms and rights holder must cooperate in order to ensure that the unauthorized protected works are not available on these user-generated content platforms. So that means if YouTube cannot get a license from the record label and publisher of Michel Polnareff, then YouTube has to remove that track from Jane Doe's YouTube channel. So I cannot tell you how this is like creating a shitstorm in the tech industry, because now the onus is on all these platforms, YouTube and Dailymotion and the likes, to actually police their content and do all the enforcement work, or clear the rights with the license right owners. So so they have to use AI, artificial intelligence, to basically screen and scan all the clients' various YouTube channels, etc. I mean, it's again an enormous shift in the power dynamics here. And they can't be like this and hold their arms in the air and say, I didn't know, I wasn't aware, and safe harbor, no longer. That's done. Okay, so otherwise they will be sued. These UGC platforms will be sued if they don't comply with Article 17. So what's happening at the moment, and in France in particular, because France has been the first EU member state to transpose in French national law the content of the Digital Single Market Directive. So what's happening in France in particular, which is like at the very forefront of implementing the Digital Single Market Directive, is that they're basically suing. They're suing the likes of Google, they're suing the likes of the platforms, YouTube, etc. They're giving them massive fines for infringing the national law relating to this safe. I mean, the transposition of Article 17 of the DSM of the Digital Single Market Directive, and the fines are really, really heavy. Okay, so I think you got now a good view of how to use this protective legal framework set up by the Digital Single Market Directive, and which can be used by content creators, by music creators. I've been very clear, I think, in giving you some examples and exactly the list of the various rights. So let's go back to Stephen's question about the disadvantages of UK performers versus EU performers. Well, now that I've explained what the Digital Single Market Directive contains, Stephen, I think you would agree with me that it's quite clear that UK music creators are very much at a disadvantage, because with the Brexit, the Digital Single Market Directive has not been transposed in UK law, and therefore, sorry, the UK music creators they can't use the tools, the protective tools, such as requesting the transparency by having an annual statement from their labels and their publishers. they can't do it if it's not set out in their contract, the English law governed contract. They cannot basically request the enforcement of the right to a fair and appropriate remuneration, because there isn't any under UK law at the moment. Well, there is under Article 18 of the DSM, of the directive. They cannot, the UK music creators cannot ask for a contract adjustment mechanism to be put in place if they actually discover that the label and or publisher are making way more money than the remuneration these music creators, these UK music creators are getting for their music. You cannot have a contract adjustment mechanism in the UK at the moment. There's no alternative dispute resolution body in place in the UK if you have a dispute in relation to transparency or in dispute to contract adjustment with your label of your publisher in the UK. Doesn't exist. There's no revocation right in case you issue a track. I mean, say for example, if you take Rita Ora, okay, so she's a UK artist, although I think she's originally from a Eastern Europe country. But Rita Ora has always baffled me because she's signed to a label, but her music is nowhere. Why? Because she's actually released some tracks, but these tracks have not been used by, as far as I know, by a label. So she's not being her tracks are basically not being played. She's never on hardly ever on streamers, and I'd never hear on the radio. So I think there was a case a few years ago, if my memory is correct, where she basically said, I want to terminate my contract because my label is not putting the music out. It's all, sitting on the shelf and nothing is happening. And I don't think that she really went very far with this complaint and this dispute. As far as I know, she's still not really performing much, Rita Ora, and most of the money she made was mainly through fashion and brands endorsement deals. So, but in the UK, because you guys decided not to stay in the EU and therefore not to transpose the directive on digital single market, there's no revocation right. So, too tough for you, Rita Ora. Anyway, so yeah, and of course that right, for your UGC platforms also doesn't exist. They in the UK, YouTube and Dailymotion, they don't have to. They can still benefit from the safe harbor protection, and they don't have to go after the rights holders to obtain licenses or strike down the content, the infringing content. So to answer your question, Stephen, UK creators, music creators are at massive disadvantage. And so that is what basically lobbyists and various bodies representing UK music creators as finally understood. Finally, the penny dropped, and then they started, contacting and lobbying various UK MPs, and this is where this bill has come from, and all this decision to do the investigation about about what's happening in the UK and how can we change it. And so what's interesting actually with the outcome of this investigation that the House of Commons Digital Culture, Media and Sports Committee from the UK Parliament has released is that this report they released in July basically contained more or less a lot of provisions which have now become law in the EU through this Digital Single Market Directive. So the committee recommends to classify music streaming as an income source subject to equitable remuneration. Okay, so they want basically streaming to be assimilated to a physical product like a CD or a DVD, and therefore to be paid I think actually it might be the other way around. Basically, what they want is that the committee wants, when they mention equitable remuneration for streaming, they want the record labels and the publishers to divide 50% of the income they receive from streaming with the music creator, be it the performer or the songwriter, lyricist. So this is what they are trying to achieve by referring to equitable remuneration in their recommendations. And what they want, this UK Parliament committee, is that the right to equitable remuneration be coexisting with the making available right. So, and they also want this remuneration to be paid by the rights holders, so the record labels, to the performers through their collective management organizations. Why? Because if it's the collecting societies who actually deal with all the streaming income, then it's transparent, because they have an obligation to disclose through the various statements. So it's clear. The CMOs, the collecting societies are in the UK would deal with the equitable remuneration, slashing it 50% for the record label, 50% for the artist, and that's clear. So that's why the committee is asking for it to be dealt with through the CMOs of the record labels. Also, what this UK Parliament committee is asking is to launch an investigation through the competition authority in the UK into the three major labels, because they have understood, for all the massive research that they did, that the likes of Warner, Universal and Sony have a 60% market share in the UK, and which is obviously a lot, and so therefore they've got so much power over the UK music creators, and so they want to have this inquiry launched into this oligopoly formed by the majors in the music industry in the UK, and they also want to have this a same system that the new protection for the UGC, the user-generated content platform, implemented in the UK, where basically safe harbor would be put on the shelf, and instead there would be this mandatory requirement to license the content. So basically, there is another point actually that the UK committee has put in this a very good idea, and this is actually an addition to what the provisions from the Digital Single Market Directive are providing. So this UK committee also wants the Advertising Standards Authority of the UK to regulate music playlist curators, because they have understood that these playlist curators have an important role in the discovery and consumption of digital music, because so many people, they don't have a time, they just want to listen to music, in the background without them having to do the curation. So what do? They go to Spotify, they go to playlists, and they say, okay, I want to have a playlist with, lots of Daft Punk music in it. And then they put press, and then they listen to all this music without doing any curation. And so that has a lot of impact on the income of the rights holders on the streamers, because if you are in a playlist, well, that is definitely going to change your fate in terms of making money or not. And being on a playlist for an artist and his or her label and publisher is very important. If you are on the playlist, there's a much higher chance that you make money out of streaming than if you aren't. So basically, the power of these music playlist curators is obviously very, very large and very important. And so what the UK committee wants to do is to have the Advertising Standards Authority set up a code of conduct for these music playlist curators, so that they are basically are transparent in relation to their selection methods the music tracks that they put on their playlist, and also that they explain, that they disclose if there's been any money paid by someone who owns the track to actually be included in this playlist. And this is a bit similar to what is being done with influencers on Instagram or Twitter. Okay, now there's a code of conduct that this Advertising Standards Authority has put in place, and Instagram influencers or YouTube influencers have an obligation to disclose whether they're getting paid by the brand when they advertise some products, etc. So I think this is a great idea to basically have a code of conduct for these music playlist creators, and this is one of the suggestions, recommendations made by the UK committee on in their report. So I think we need to basically get on. How can I say this politely? We need to be mindful with time because it's already 24 past 4. But do you guys have any questions or comments about this new protective legal framework in the EU, in the UK? If you want to unmute yourself to ask a question, or if you want to use the chat box, let me have a look what's going on in YouTube if we have any comments. Okay, so I'll just move on now to our last point. Okay, so the last point is what is the future of the suggested reforms made by this committee through its report to improve the UK music industry and also to improve the fate of UK music creators? Well, on a factual level, now that this bill has been presented to the UK Parliament and is in its second reading stage in the House of Commons, well, there's going to be some debate, obviously, for these various new music legal reforms to enter into force and to therefore amend various sections of the UK Copyright Design and Patent Act 1988 to introduce this right to an equitable remuneration for performers, as I mentioned before, and also to have a right to revocation of a transfer of rights after 20 years. And so from a timeline standpoint, this bill is just going through the motion in the UK Parliament. Some other facts that we can use to assess the future of this suggested reform is that, as I mentioned before, the UK government, as well as the UK competition authority, have provided a response to the report created by the UK committee in September 2021. And in there, basically, the main message was wait and see. The UK government was like, yeah, that's great. You've done a great job, committee, great reforms, great suggestion of reforms, but let's wait and see. What we're going to do as a UK government is that we are going to ask for more research, do some, put in place some working groups and the music industry contact group, and we're going to launch a research program and alongside stakeholders engagement, and we're going to launch some technical stakeholders working groups, and we're going to sit tight and assess. And in particular, what we're going to sit tight for and assess is what's happening in the European Union after the transposition of a digital single market directive, because we want to see how this works out on the other side of a channel. And yeah, and so yeah, sit tight and assess. But in the meantime, what I think is going to happen, and this is therefore my humble view on the matter, is that the UK music market is going to lose to lose its competitive edge, at least, you know, contract-wise, because the most business savvy talent will try to sign with record labels and publishers who are based in the European Union, because they will feel way more protected there. And so I think this is a bit of a shame if too much time elapses between now and you know, between in the next few months or years, there's definitely going to be a massive discrepancy, and the best talent will be signed with labels and publishers based in the European Union, no doubt about this. I mean, why would you work your socks off, you know, to produce some great content and then not get paid for it? I mean, obviously you will want to do something else. So even if you have to take the Eurostar and relocate to Paris or Berlin, or, you know, well, you'll do it. So I personally think, in terms of, again, assessing the future of the suggested reforms in the UK, I personally think that with the UK Conservative government that we have at the moment, the Conservative leadership, there's no way that the bill presented by this committee and members of parliament in the UK, or any new iteration of it, will be adopted anytime soon in the UK, because this Conservative government will probably view all these recommendations made by the committee and also set out in the bill as too intrusive into the contractual relationship between the music labels and publishers and with the music creators. So yeah, I'm not very hopeful that the UK government is actually going to follow through and really is serious about implementing those recommendations made by the UK committee. Actually, the US journalists and music commentators who've discussed these reforms and recommendations made by the UK committee have been particularly scathing about it. For example, they said that the committee seems to be aiming to reshape commercial business models for streaming music. These commentators from the US are prompt in underlying that UK Parliament only makes UK laws, which implies that the UK cannot single-handedly intervene into the free music majors' worldwide contractual arrangement with a talent, or go against established licensing agreements set up by streaming services, just Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and Google Play. So with this negative feedback coming from the US, and with the sort of uncertainty as to what's going to happen in the new digital single market landscape created in the last few months in the European Union, I think that the UK leadership and UK government are just going to do nothing and just wait and buy time, so that UK music creators think that there still is a chance that they're going to actually do something, until they realize in a few years down the line that nothing is being done. So sorry for not being more positive about this, but this is my feeling at this state of play. I'm done, guys. I'm done, everyone, with my presentation. If you have any comments or questions or remarks that you would like to make, don't hesitate. Okay, so on YouTube, sorry, on YouTube, Ben is asking, so should I just relocate to the a EU country as a UK musician? Well, my answer is it depends. If you are already signed to a label and a publisher in the UK, perhaps it is what it is, and your best approach is to approach your. Your best strategy is to perhaps approach your record label and publisher if you are unhappy about how much you are being paid for streams, and attempt to in good faith renegotiate with them by relying on their goodwill to renegotiate, even if you don't have any right to renegotiate on your agreement. But if then you are a UK musician who is just starting out in the industry, and you've got nothing to lose if you leave the UK, yes, I think you are better off actually taking the Eurostar and going somewhere in Europe, in the European Union, in the 27 member states of the European Union, and start your career from there if you can. And as I said before, try to find a genre of music or collaborations with local artists, which will basically make sure that you can get some traction in this particular market. So if you are in the rap genre, for example, it might be a good idea to go to France because there are many French rappers, and try to do some collaborations with Doc Gineco or and all the new rappers who are coming out, such as Ichon or Moi la Squale, etc., etc. If you are more into Latino music, maybe you want to do some collaboration in Spain, as I explained before, or Portugal, and work from there. Okay, so there are plenty of options, yeah. Okay, so I've got a question from Stephen. So French urban artist earns 50% of a YouTube income through UGC on YouTube. Okay, maybe. YouTube will not seek licenses for them, so it's big hit for the artists. Through YouTube. Well, okay, well, I take your word for it, Stephen. If you're saying so, although really now YouTube does need to get the license. I mean, perhaps the license has already been granted since maybe it's on the YouTube on their own YouTube channel that they are putting the music. So of course the rights have been cleared. If a French urban artist is putting his music on his YouTube channel, then that's fine. The license has already been provided because it's his music. But yeah, so yeah, obviously YouTube does not need to get a license for that. So yeah, good point actually, Stephen. Fair point. Great, everyone. Thank you very much. Shiho, lovely to see you again. I'll let you know when I'm back to south of France.
Oui, thank you very much. Oui, j'attends. Dites-moi.
Do you have any questions? Do you have any points?
Thank you very much for your great presentation. I'm happy to understand my situation. So I was confused. What happened to me with the partner of the distribution, but now I understood what happened. So
good.
There has been changed.
Yes, it's better for you since you are based in France.
C'est avec Believe. J'ai utilisé le TuneCore.
Okay.
I was using the TuneCore. But
okay, Shiho, this conversation is recorded, okay? So I think it's best if we have like another conversation on the, at like the two of us together. I just wanted to say hi, but yeah, because this is then going to go on like on various channels. So, but I'm glad to hear that you're doing some good business in France, and yeah, for you the situation is better because you're based in France. So good for you.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'm delighted, and I will be interacting with you very soon, hopefully. Bye.